Good afternoon, everyone. 4 o'clock straight up on a Thursday edition of Middays with you. As always, I'm your host, Rich Quiñones. We'll take you up to 6 o'clock straight up on this 3rd of July, 2025. 2 hours to play with. We are coming at you live and in living color, exclusively on TriX57, TriX57.com. As always, get social with us. It's very easy to do. Facebook, IG, and X at TriX57. And of course, you can check me out on IG and X at RichQ and TikTok, RichQ on the mic. And as we kind of put to bed another busy week in the world of sports, a lot to dissect, dive into, debate, get into on a Thursday, the 3rd of July, as we are approaching 4th of July. Happy early 4th of July holiday weekend, Independence Day, to those that will be riding around down the shores, celebrating. Be safe, be sound, enjoy yourself. No Middays with Q on TriX tomorrow, but we're probably going to squeeze in a short edition on my YouTube channel and on X as well. But if you guys are checking us out right now, as you routinely do, not only on TriX57, but also on their Facebook page, the engagement from the viewers, the listening audience, you guys have been absolutely fantastic. Seriously, you guys have been engaged. I mean, we're talking, you guys are hanging with me for 2 hours every day. And I just got to say, thank you. Thank you very much. Feedback has been unbelievable. And as I mentioned, we love that you guys are keeping us locked in right here down the Jersey Shore. A little alternative to sports talk, local sports talk, but we want to give you that national feel as well. So, as I mentioned, a lot to get into. Lloyd Vance at 5:05, we'll call it today, as we dissect the AFC North. We got, yesterday was a interesting show talking about Jake Paul and Julio Cesar Chavez. I don't know if you guys saw the news that came down, but apparently, according to TMZ, Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. was arrested by ICE. He's going to be deported. Now they're linking this fighter, this kid, this boxer to cartel activity. I mean, I don't even know where we go here. He's apparently going to face organized crime charges. So I got some thoughts on that. We got another potential gambling issue in baseball. Another potential gambling issue in baseball. This time it's with the Guardians' Luis Ortiz, who's going to be subject of a gambling operation, subject of, gambling behavior. This is not going away. There's more fallout from the Beasley situation. We'll dive into that. As far as the baseball, a couple things of note that I do want to touch base on. Because I think we saw last night I don't want to say a rarity in baseball, but we have to be, as we typically are, always are, fully transparent and honest when we're talking about the sport of baseball and records that we believe will not be matched, records that we believe are not going to be broken, or just, I guess you can say, milestones that, man, I'll tell you, I would be hard pressed to sit here on a Thursday in July and say, these are records that, or milestones we're not going to match. Clayton Kershaw last night, the venerable one for the Dodgers, 3,000 strikeouts. 3,000 strikeouts. And the Dodgers won the game over the White Sox 5-4. He becomes the 20th pitcher to reach 3,000 Ks for his career. Listen, he is a Hall of Fame pitcher, no doubt. And I used to get on Kershaw for years for not being a big game pitcher in the postseason or playoffs. Now, he squashed that notion several years back. He always had issues in the postseason. It's almost like Aaron Judge with the Yankees. Wonderful stats, unbelievable offensive numbers, slugging percentage, home runs, ribbies, average, 162 games. But for some reason, come postseason time, you're not all rising with Judge. So right now, you look at Kershaw, 3,000 right on the button. There's two other active pitchers right now, Scherzer and Verlander, that are over 3,000. But then, you start to get into this, All right, who's going to be the next? I don't know if 3,000 is such the barometer that I claim it to be quite honest, but I don't think we're ever going to see a 4,000 strikeout pitcher again. Steve Carlton was the last pitcher to throw for over 4,000 strikeouts. Obviously, Nolan Ryan is the all time strikeout leader with 57-14. So it kind of brings me into this on this Thursday. And it's not even part of our question of the day. But what milestones in sports, respectively, do you believe are going to be the hardest to reach? Is it going to be the next, I don't know, 13,000, 12,000 yard rusher? 12,000, 10,000 yard receiver is, 100. We'd have to look at some of these records, right? Averaging a triple double for an entire season. The next potential 600 home run hitter. I think there are certain milestones in sports that are going to be tough to get to and tough to chase. And you can take it anywhere you want to go on this Thursday. You can take it anywhere you want to go. If you want to talk, goals, in NHL, you want to talk about points, assists. You want to talk about NFL, total yards from scrimmage. You want to talk about, are we going to see I don't know. You think we'll ever see well, we haven't seen it, but you think we'll ever see a 6,000 yard passer in the NFL? I mean, that's a crazy number to think of. A 6,000 yard passer in the NFL. The way some of these quarterbacks are slinging it, I mean, we thought a couple years ago we might see it. No quarterback in NFL history has ever thrown for 6,000 passing yards in a regular season. It's never been done. Never been done. But we've seen quarterbacks get to 5,300, 5,400, 5,500, right? We've seen that. Peyton Manning, Drew Brees, Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, all over 5,000 yards. Years ago, the barometer was get me to 3,000. Then all of a sudden you start talking about a 4,000 yard passer. That was a different animal. Now you're talking about a 5,000, potentially 6,000. So we'll open it up, as I mentioned early. Lot to digest, lot to dive into, but congratulations, Clayton Kershaw. He's a great pitcher. He's a great pitcher. I mean, he is a Hall of Fame pitcher. And here's the other thing. Clayton Kershaw has done it with one team. Now, he's not going to win 300 games. He'll be lucky if he finishes his career with 230 if he continues to pitch past the age of 37. But he's had some monster seasons. He won 20-plus games. He won 21 games twice. He was an MVP. He was a Cy Young Award winner twice, right? And then finally, he was able to do what a lot of the greats can't do. And that's not only put together a Hall of Fame record and resume, and then finally get over the hump, especially in the postseason. Because he was not the best postseason pitcher. He's not. I mean, think about this. For his career, he's 500. He's a 500 pitcher. He's 13-13 in the postseason. But he finally was able to get over the hump a couple years ago for the Dodgers. And the Dodgers right now playing arguably the best baseball in the majors. Toronto, jumped frog, my Yankees. The Yankees are so bad right now. I don't even know. Aaron Boone's sitting there saying, we're a good ball club. You're not. You stink. I mean, right now you're horrible. You can't win on the road. You can't win at home. No offense whatsoever. And the pitching stinks. Base running, blunders, errors. Yankees are a bad baseball team right now. Detroit, very good baseball team. Houston, a very good baseball team. Phillies, a little bit of breathing room over the Mets in the NL East. They lead that division by 2. Marlins and the Braves are starting to kind of go by the wayside. Cubs, Brewers, that'll be an interesting NL Central as we creep into July and August. And then obviously the Dodgers already trying to pull away from the Padres, 8.5 up. So as I mentioned, again, you talk about the records. And it's crazy to think about this. I believe there are certain milestones and I believe there are certain marks that, are we going to see another? So for baseball, can you envision another 70 home run season? We can envision 55. We can envision 60 because we've had players that have hit 50 plus. I mean, hell, Brady Anderson hit 50 home runs years ago for the Baltimore Orioles, before we found out he was juice. 6 players have hit 60 or more home runs in a single season. Babe Ruth, Roger Maris, Mark McGwire, Sammy Sosa, Bonds, and he's not the home run king, by the way, Aaron Judge. I think some of you guys are, bringing in the hockey, which I think is probably your best bet, to be honest. Your best bet when you talk about total points, the record, it's absurd. I mean, Gretzky, you guys correct me if I'm wrong, the hockey guys, what does he have? Close to 3,000 points, right? 3,000 points, almost 900 goals. He's got like 2,000 assists. Yager, I just pulled it up. Yager is almost 1,000 points behind him. Am I doing my math correct? You guys check me on this, will you? The hockey guys out there. That's absolutely crazy. Now, points per game regular season, you go to Yager, you go to Gretzky, but I'm talking all-time leaders right now. Wayne Gretzky has 2,857 points. That's 1.92 points per game. Yager, who played forever, has 1,921 career points. You know the next player behind these guys is Messier. Crosby sitting at 9. Ovechkin sitting at 11. That's crazy. Does that not tell you how great Gretzky was? I mean, that's a record. Like when you talk about the all-time greats in respective sports, and we always talk about the quarterbacks in the NFL, right? Because we want to sit there and say, under center, touch the ball, here's the records, MVPs, Super Bowl MVPs, typically 99% of the time they go to the quarterback. They go to the starting quarterback of the winning team, period. It's not even debatable. Not even debatable, unless you get a Timmy Smith's running for, 200 and something odd yards in 87. You get a Larry Brown making a couple pick sixes, cashing in, and then doing nothing after his Dallas days. And in baseball, we look at the pitcher or we look at the slugger. And in the NBA, listen, if you're a center or you're a forward or you're, a guard and you're accumulating 15, 20,000 points, hey, that's a hell of a career. In hockey, in the NHL, when you talk points, one man. It's one man. It's Gretzky. I mean, I'm looking at the numbers right now. That's absurd. He played in you guys explain this to me. Make it make sense to me on this Thursday. Wayne Gretzky played in 1,487 games. He amassed 2,857 points. I mean, you just can't even, I can't even quantify that. I can't even make sense of that. Scott chimes in. By the way, Browns fan will do the AFC North at 505. Gretzky points total. Gretzky has more assists than Yager has points. That will be broken with the new 84-game season. Talking about the NHL. Look at that. De facto decides to chime in on a Thursday. I mean, where were you yesterday? We're talking, your Philadelphia Eagles and Washington pushing them. Over 2,800. Yeah, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Michael chimes in. Gretzky is the GOAT, not even a debate. It's not. I mean, you can argue quarterbacks, one or two. You can argue all-time great centers. You can argue all-time home run leaders, pitchers, lefties, right? It doesn't matter. But when you talk NHL, like one man stands alone. One man stands alone. It's Gretzky. Those numbers are absolutely absurd. Now, I think eventually, if the NFL goes to an 18, and I still maintain 20 games, as crazy as it sounds, one preseason or you eliminate preseason altogether, you stretch out training camp, you go to 20 games. Now, doing my liberal arts, YCP, York College of Pennsylvania, radio station 88.1, by the way, go Spartans, doing that liberal arts math, if we're talking, it's pretty easy, right? 20 games, you got to throw for 300. Now, in a 18-game season, you're looking at 333. So if the NFL goes to a 20-game season, is there potential for a quarterback to throw for 6,000 yards? I mean, it's just the way the game is now, the NFL wants the game to be opened up. That's what they're looking for. they want the offenses to get going. So we got a lot of comments coming in on this. We're going to dive into it. And by the way, I threw out a little more of a laissez-faire question of the day. Just kind of a laissez-faire question of the day, because I figure Thursday, everyone's got the holiday weekend. Maybe you guys are going down to the shore. You're taking your loved ones, the misses, the girlfriends, the mistresses, whatever. You guys are going away for an extended, weekend. You got the barbecue going. And I was thinking about this question of the day. Very simple. Because this is debated all the time. Mustard and ketchup together on a hot dog. Is that sane or crazy? Because I believe there's a sentiment of the masses, the population, that will put ketchup on a hot dog. Now, explain this to me on a Thursday edition of Middays with Q. You can get away with mustard and mustard and ketchup on a hamburger. No complaints, right? But I feel as though you're frowned upon. People will look down on you. If you're that person at the barbecue or the young kid who sits there and he gets the ketchup on the hot dog, it's almost like, you're out of place. And you're looked upon as almost like, we should shuttle you off to an island by yourself. And I don't have a problem with that. And if you put the mustard in there, why not? If you can get away with it on a hamburger, if there's no issue with hot dogs, I keep saying hot dogs, with ketchup and mustard on a hamburger, why is there an issue with ketchup and mustard on a hot dog? I don't get it. I feel as though it's like discriminatory. I really do. I don't understand. I feel as though people that do that get a bad rap. I do. It's me. It's what I think. I'm going to stand by it. All right. We got a lot of comments coming in. So we got some milestones. We got records you guys think are not going to be broken, not going to be touched. By the way, we've got the Chavez story, which is utterly just loco, man. It's crazy. I got some thoughts on that. We'll bleed into a little more of the conversation yesterday from the NBA, AFC North at 5:05. If you are a fan of the AFC North, Baltimore, Cleveland, Cincinnati, and Pittsburgh, you want to tune in for Lloyd Vance jumping on at 5:05. We're just cranking up on a Thursday edition, Middays with Q. 20 past the 4 o'clock hour, powered by our wonderful friends over at TriX57. Keep us locked in as well, TriX57.com. Rich Quiñones here. We will take you up to 6 o'clock straight up. Quick time out. Your comments coming up on the other side on a Thursday edition, Middays with Q.
The blast got the drinks pouring. Take a risk like it's a short thing. Going in, I'm going all in. Get it cool out, you can bring a friend. Dive right in, let's go. Do more than 15 minutes. Let the rhythm take control. It's going down tonight, Dive right in, let's go. Do more than 15 minutes. Let the rhythm take control. It's going down tonight, Dive right in.
This is what the Down Beach Seafood Fest is all about. It's about community, it's about friends, it's about culture, right? The food culture in Atlantic County is rich.
Hidden in an abandoned campground in South Jersey lies a mystical encounter with brews and spirits, where bonfires burn, shadows dance, and flavor favors the bold. Ghosts, ghouls, goblins, grown-ups, it's time to reclaim Halloween. This is Witchcraft, October 10th and 11th. For tickets and information, visit witchcraftnj.com.
Hi, I'm Bruce Pascoe. I'm very fortunate. Years ago, I found something that I genuinely like to do, and it's something that helps other people. What I do is help people transition from traditional health insurance into Medicare. I've been doing it here in Atlantic County for more than 20 years. If you're getting ready for Medicare, call me for a free consultation. 609-484-9800.
All right, welcome back, everyone. 20 past the 4 o'clock hour, a very busy Thursday edition of Middays with Q. Rich Quiñones here. Love the engagement and the comments coming in fast and furious. We'll take you up to 6 o'clock. We're here on Tri-X 57 as well. Scott, no ketchup on a hot dog. Pink Mink needs mustard. Vince chimes in. What's going on in this damn country? Are we talking about the hot dogs, the hamburgers, the ketchup, the mustard? Are we talking about Chavez getting deported by ICE? A lot of stuff going on this Thursday, brother. A lot of stuff. Q300 game winners in baseball will be rare, I think. Yeah, that's a great one. I'll do you one better too, Scott. How about this? Think about the way baseball is now. And I have this argument all the time with baseball writers, media guys, even some former pitchers and players. I'll ask you guys this. What is a lost art in baseball right now? From a pitching standpoint, what would you consider a lost art? And again, as a reminder, get social with us, Tri-X57 on Facebook, IG, and X. You got to follow along. You got to like, got to comment. You got to subscribe as well. Also, Rich Q on QX, Twitter, Rich Q on the mic on TikTok. What is a lost art when we're talking about the sport of baseball? I mean, it should be pretty easy to you guys. Really, it should be. There you go. Bam. Complete game. Think about this for a moment, because I was looking at these numbers the other day. Steve Garner from USA Today will join me next week. So growing up, and even for some of you younger guys, do you remember that the complete game, guys were doing it left and right? I mean, you go back to the early 90s and then to the late 70s to the 80s. Guys were pitching 19, 20, 25 complete games in a season. Catfish Hunter had 30 complete games for the Yankees in 75. Randy Jones had 25 for the Pods back in 76. Fernando Valenzuela, rookie year, 11. Steve, Louisiana Lightning, Ron Guidry, I think had 21, 22 back in 83 on a bad Yanks team. Roger Clemens had 18 for Boston, 18, 19 back in 87, 88. This is a ridiculous number. The last pitcher in the American League to have double-digit complete games, I can't believe, you guys might not even remember this kid, James Shields. James Shields had 11 complete games for Tampa in 2011. The NL, don't even get me started in the National League. The last pitcher in the NL to have 10 or more complete games in a season, Randy Johnson, 1999. Now, I get it. The game is different. They want to shorten up the pen. They want to shorten up the game. They want to have their guys go out for 5, 6. It's a different animal. But we talk about some of these records, milestones, stats that really can't be touched. Complete games. You're not going to, I don't believe we will ever see now, if we stick to that theme for a moment, if I'm out there and I'm tossing, 20 something odd complete games, then chances are, okay, we're talking about 20 game winners, right? We're talking about 20 game winners right now in the in baseball. So what about the 25 game winner? What about the 30 game winner? We're just not going to see it anymore. We're not going to see that ever again. So you can talk about the 60 plus home runs. You can talk about, 5,500 yard passer. You can talk about Gretzky and his points, the goals per season, all these rookie records, the assist. You match it up, even though it's apples and oranges with baseball, and the days of 25, 20 game winner, that's great. Hey, that's unbelievable, man. The guy won 20 games. Now, the last 20 game pitcher we had in the AL was, I think it might have been, I have to pull it up. Was it John Lester? Might have been Lester. And then I know that Scherzer had 20 wins. Kershaw had 18. Kershaw had 21 in 2014. But point being is, we don't see that in R.A. Dickey. Remember the year R.A. Dickey had 20 wins? That was crazy. Remember that? Knuckleballer. We're just not going to see it anymore. Urias had 20. Kyle Wright had 21 2 years ago. And there might have been a pitcher that had 20, but 25, 28, it's just not happening. It's not. I'm trying to pull up the AL. That's the NL. I'm trying to pull up the AL quickly because I see some comments coming in. I want to get to you guys. I always like to get to the comments first and foremost. The last in the AL was Verlander and Cole, I believe, had 21 and 20 respectively. We just don't see it anymore. We just don't. Sarge chimes in, Q, sacrilegious to throw that mustard and ketchup on a dog at the same time. There's no place for that. Let me see. Danny chimes in, a big-time hockey fan in Newark, Delaware. Q, absolutely agree with your guys chiming in. It's all about Gretzky, number one in every statistical category. It's absurd what he's able to accomplish in his career. Yeah, not bad. Matty Ice in Delaware chiming in. No one's ever going to hit 70 home runs unless they're juiced once again. Q, enjoying the show as always. 70 home runs, different barometer, right? When you get a running back that was running for over 1,000 yards, that was not a big deal in the NFL. Now we're seeing guys eclipse 2,000 yards. So then we'll keep it right there. I think this is all based on the notion, if the NFL goes to 18 games. If they go to 20 games, all bets are off. Look, O.J. Simpson rushed for 2,000 yards in 1973. He did it in 14 games. Other backs, 16, 17. He finished with 2,004 yards. Dickerson broke the single season rushing record. And that was the second 2,000 yard season. Now, again, that was 16 games. His average was $131 on the ground. Barry Sanders. What did we just see recently, right? Adrian Peterson, Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley. And again, Saquon reached 2,000 his 16th game. So to date, Davis and Barkley are the only members of the 2,000-yard club to win a Super Bowl in the year they rushed for 2,000 yards. Now, will we ever see a 2,500-yard rusher? We're never going to see a 3,000-yard. I mean, that's just goofy talk. But 2,500 yards? Like I believe there's certain numbers, milestones that it's just physically, you can't touch them. You can't. They're untouchable. They really are. They're really untouchable. Tommy, boxing guy chimes in. Q, are you kidding me with the story? Is this legit on Chavez Jr.? That's what I'm reading. I mean, it's extremely bizarre. I mean, Homeland Security tweeted out on July 2nd, ICE arrested Mexican boxer and criminal illegal alien Julio Cesar Chavez. He is now being processed for expedited removal from the United States. This Sinaloa cartel affiliate has, now if you know it, I mean, Sinaloa cartel, are you kidding me? Has an active arrest warrant in Mexico for his involvement in organized crime and trafficking firearms, ammunitions, and explosives. Now, this is a tweet. I'm reading this off of Homeland Security on their Twitter account at DHS.gov. I'm reading it word for word. They got 2.5 million followers. Don't get on me. Under President Trump, no one is above the law, including world famous athletes. Our message to any cartel affiliates in the U.S. is clear. We will find you and you will face consequences. The days of unchecked cartel violence are over. Now, remember, all those gangs from Venezuela were running roughshod in Detroit, right? All over the place, in New York, just running roughshod. But here's my, I don't know. So we are now claiming, it's being claimed that Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. is a affiliate of the cartel. That's what's being claimed. Now again, just follow me for a moment. And I don't care what side of the fence you lay your hat on. I really don't. Your opinion is your opinion. You're entitled to your opinion on the show. It's free reign Monday to Friday, 4 to 6. There's whatever your political stance is, whatever side of that's your business. But just follow me. So he is, quote, they claim he's a cartel affiliate, which is never a good thing, right? But you're basically allowing Chavez Jr. to be up front, fight, promote a multi-million-dollar event. So he's fought, he's cashed in, money's in the bank, and oh, by the way, you had the media tours, you have the work, all this stuff, and now you bust and deport him. Does that add up? I'm just saying, does that add up? Is it me? Am I naive here? Naivete? But it's just bizarre. Is it not? Bizarre, bizarre, bizarre. Apologies, fellas. Late arrival, busy day. Man. Hey, man, you chime in when you feel like you're chiming in, because apparently you're starting to get that reputation where, after yesterday, people felt maybe you were a little too harsh to said host. How about 3,000 for Kershaw? 100%. Non-room reading entrance. No. Listen, you're good, brother. You're good. You're good. Are we kidding this? What do we? Do I have to read this one on the air? With global warming and more humid air, I expect home run production to increase. What do I do with this? What are you watching? What are you watching? Like the day after tomorrow? Remember the scene, right? The day after tomorrow, right? They're in the library and Jake Gyllenhaal's telling him not to leave, and all of a sudden he pulls out. What card did he pull out? He turns around and he goes, "Oh, my father's paleontologist for NASA." All right, de facto. All right, cash grab on Chavez Jr. Listen, that's what do we think now? Now, where are we going to go with this? Right, we're going to go down the rabbit hole. Cash grab, laundering the money. Here we go. Drive you off to the desert. What's his name in Breaking Bad? I thought I was being polite. You were sort of, but to be honest, man, some people felt maybe you were being a little too harsh. And that's okay. You know why? Because we accept that. We don't have a problem with that at all. We don't. You come at us, we're going to come right at you. Remember, there's two types of people in this world, right? You guys know. There are those that do what? They run towards the fire, and then there are others that run away. Speak that truth, Q. Hey, we have to. Yeah, I don't know what de facto's thinking on a Thursday. I just don't. I really have no idea. Where are we going with the humidity and the air and the velocity and what is that now? The pitch radius and that's another thing. I've got pet peeves. We'll do that for another show, but there's certain phrases I can't stand. You don't friggin' push the ball down the field. Stop. You throw the ball down the field. You can't have a walk-off goal in hockey, a walk-off field goal, a walk-off basket. No. You want to say walk-off homer, that's one thing. But stop using walk-off, just so haphazardly. That annoys me. So to Michael's point, yeah, I agree. I agree. Like, what are we doing now? We're talking about humidity in the air, right? The balls, yeah, in the summertime, it's more humid in certain ballparks. The ball travels, citizens, cores, altitude, of course. I mean, you're just killing the momentum de facto with that comment. It just reminds me of what was the movie? The Day After Tomorrow. Like, I got to listen to Jake Gyllenhaal because his father's a paleontologist. I had to Google that. I can't believe I even pronounced it properly, but his father's a paleontologist. Talking about a lost art, stolen bases. Those records are safe. Yes. Yeah. Stolen bases in baseball is beyond a lost art. Look, no one's turning around and we're pulling, God rest his soul, Ricky Henderson. No one's stealing a $130 back in '82 for Oakland. I mean, which, by the way, put it in perspective, what Ricky Henderson did that year. Lou Brock is also considered one of the all-time great, base stealers in baseball history. He swiped 118 and 74. Ricky Henderson turns around and goes 130 and 82. Unheard of. Maddie in Delaware chimes in. Q, what the hell are you talking about? Humidity. Please check these comments. The ball carries further in humid air. Hashtag facts. Yeah, but we know that as a kid. Like, so I have to go back up to your comment. I got to bookmark this nonsense. I do. I'm just going to leave it here for a minute. Now, you guys make of this, whatever you want. Go ahead. Global warming, more humid air. I expect home run production. So are we talking this season? We talking about overall, 5-10 years from now? So let me break it down. We'll do it in simple terms, de facto. Do you believe because of the global warming and humid air, more humid air, that we will get a 70 home run hitter? Or maybe it has to do with the pitchers are coming in faster, the ball's traveling faster, the guys are bigger, stronger, swinging a heavier bat. I mean, Aaron Judge is a big dude, is he not? I mean, Aaron Judge, every time he steps up to the plate, something's happening, right? You're talking about a kid that's 6'7". He's 6'7". He's huge. So we stick him in your humid air scenario. Is he cranking 65, 70? He hit 62 in 2022. He hit 58 last year. He's got 31 already this year. He's the MVP again, by the way. I mean, let's make no bones about it. Aaron Judge, you make already a Hall of Fame player. He's going to win his third MVP, which is just ridiculous, which is absolutely ridiculous. So yeah, the ball travels. Absolutely. 5 to 10 years from now. So you think we're going to get an 80 home run hitter? Wow. So you might be taking us down a very interesting rabbit hole for a moment, de facto. You're contributing. You're bringing something to the table on this fine Thursday, which is always what we ask for from 4 to 6. So let's go with your theory. So let's do this. Within 5 to 10 years, we love to throw out the questions because we love the engagement. You're talking home run hitter, slugs 80. Now, do we believe there will be a 6,000-yard passer in the NFL with the caveat that the NFL expands to 18 to 20 games? We are marking the tape. Don't worry about what I'm doing. Worry about you. Don't worry about my business behind the mic. The tape is being marked, just like I predicted Washington pushing the Eagles, just like I came on the air the other day and guaranteed that the Denver Broncos and Bronco Ball will win the AFC West. The tape is marked. So now you got an 80 home run hitter, a 6,000-yard passer, 2,500-yard rusher, and then how about someone in the NBA averaging a triple-double? Or, no, I don't like that one. I don't like that one. Right? Didn't Westbrook average a triple-double for an entire season? The first one to do it was Oscar Robertson. His numbers were off the chart. His numbers were absolutely off the chart. What about averaging 40 points a game in the NBA? What about never even remotely came close to 20 plus home runs, 25 home runs, 30 home runs? We're going to stick them in Texas and Florida, and right away You're talking about a guy. Stop. I don't care how much juice or Coke it could have been. No, not happening. See, you go from one, and then all of a sudden we go here. Stop. Yes to all, especially with expanded season. That's ridiculous. You have to give me more to this. You just can't yes. Like, give me a little more context, right? What do we got here? First Lady chimes in queue. There's no way, even with a 20-game NFL season, that a quarterback's throwing for 600 yards. It's not happening. Or 6,000, I think you meant. Again, we broke it down. 20-game NFL season, the likelihood you're probably going to get banged up. You might miss a game or two, but you got to average 300 yards passing a game. It's simple math. Now, a 2,500-yard rusher, I don't know. I don't know about that. I really don't. I think you guys are correct with the Wayne Gretzky. I guess you can say the barometer. That kind of checks the boxes, right? But I don't see, especially in baseball, I think too, you don't want to be a guy that gives up that home run, and sometimes they're going to pitch around these guys. That's, that hasn't been brought up. The other thing is too, remember now, Scott brought up a great point. We're talking about complete games. Pitchers aren't going 6-7. There's not going to be arm fatigue. So you're bringing in other guys that are going to mow you down with 98, 99, 100 late in the game. I don't see, 75 home runs. You have to have certain months where you're cracking 15 to 20 a month. Like, you have to have that binge that Sosa, McGuire, Bonds, Judge had a couple years ago. I mean, it's just physically, I just think, especially the one mistake I believe some players make is they tire out, especially the ones that are part of the home run derby. All those swings one night. I mean, you do get fatigued. You might not feel it 5 minutes after or the next day, but 2 or 3 days later, you're going to feel it. And that's one of the reasons a lot of these guys don't want to partake in the home run derby anymore. They just don't. And we're talking about sluggers that routinely can hit 30, 40, 50, a la like a Pete Alonso. So I think there's something to be said about that, to your point, and also to the First Lady Marty's point. Monday Marcus chiming in on a Thursday. Q, a couple things. First of all, at a barbecue, I'm going to eat whatever I want. If I want to throw a little mustard and a little ketchup on the dog, so be it. It's America. I can do whatever the hell I want to do. Second of all, I had no idea about the Chavez story. That sounds absolutely wild. And third of all, there are so many records in sports that I don't believe are going to be touched, but I'm going to throw out one to you. How about 100 points in an NBA game? That's not bad. That's not bad. They try to, I think a lot of people, you talk to guys that are in their 70s and 80s and, old, not old, but you know what I'm saying? Sports fans, they will claim they were there when Wilt scored 100 points. That's not bad. Now, we've seen 100 points in high school games. We've seen it. Wagner, there was a kid years ago that played at Camden, Greg Barr. I think he was one of the best players to come out of South Jersey. Greg Barr, he was a Camden product. He scored, I think, 100 and was it 105? Or did he just hit 100? And that was against, I think, kind of the same team quality-wise that Wagner. Wagner did it, I believe, against a tech school, Gloucester Tech. But Wilt Chamberlain scoring 100 points in a game, no one's ever going to score 100 points in an NBA game. It's not happening. The Warriors beat the Knicks that day, 169-147. He scored 100 of those points. And I mentioned the 40 points per game. This shows you how dominant Wilt Chamberlain was. Wilt Chamberlain averaged 50 points for an entire season. You talk to the old school NBA fans, the old school hoop guys, the guys around the Northeast, the South Philly area, the New York area, the North Jersey, in the city, the boroughs, the Rucker Park. Those guys are the historians. Those guys will basically forget as much basketball as I'll ever know in my lifetime. Like, they know the sport of basketball. You ask any of those heads how dominant Wilt Chamberlain was. Like, if you stuck Wilt in today's NBA, he would absolutely just thrash these guys. He would thrash them. He would probably average 80 points a game. He would average 80 points a game. 100 points, never happening again. Corporate fake news, but Mike Schmidt or Ryan Howard could have done it. No, stop. That's ridiculous. Stop. Now what you're doing is you're just showing your your Philly colors to a T. And I don't have a problem with that, but now you're just sounding, it's goofy talk on a Thursday. It's utter goofy talk. That's not happening. Schmidt, an all-time great slugger, right? Schmidt almost got sent down early on in his career because he was horrible at third base. He was striking out all the time. He's making E's left and right. Schmidt came into his own 74, 75. His best 2 seasons, though, from a statistical standpoint, Mike Schmidt in 80 was arguably the best player in baseball. Best player in baseball. But he didn't hit 50 home runs. He hit 48. Then you go back to 83 and the Wheeze Kids, when they lost to Baltimore in the World Series, he hit 40, 41. Schmidt wasn't hitting 70, 80 home runs. Ryan Howard, I would say, in pristine conditions, like if you stuck Ryan Howard in Coors, Ryan Howard could have easily hit 60 plus in 2006. I mean, his season was just absurd. 58 home runs. I mean, he had his slugging percentage, his OPS. I mean, think about the guys he was better than that season. Pujols, right? Berkman, Beltran, Cabrera. I think, remember Soriano at the time was with Washington. He was unbelievable that year. Do we stick him in optimal conditions, weather-wise, and say this guy can hit 65, 70? I think so. Scott, yes, 6,000 yards is very possible. 2,500 rush is a little too much, but 160 receptions is possible. Are we going... So Kevin wants to know the NFL records. Are we saying it's a 20-game NFL season? Are we going to speculate it's a 20-game NFL season? Because 2,500 rushing yards in 20 games, and again, yes, I take my calendar out, or calculator. You guys can mock me. I don't care. That's what? What is that? What did we say? 2,500? That's a $125. Eric Dickerson averaged a $131. Go look at Saquon's numbers. So Saquon played 16 games and he ran for over 2,000. Give him 4 more games. Give him a $120 a game. That gets you right at 2,500. With the caveat, it's a 20-game season, Scott. That's good. 160 receptions. Well, again, if we're doing the math here, right? 10 catches over 16 weeks and you're good to go. Now, if we give you 20 weeks, you get some more wiggle room, do you not? Nobody is breaking Gretzky 92-goal season. Not human enough in the ring. Excellent point. Excellent point. What do we got here? Tom and Summers point. Q, as well as I do, no one is breaking Bonds' record. But Tom knows I don't recognize Bonds as the all-time home run king leader. It's Henry Aaron. And Bonds did it with the big head. I mean, he was a friggin' walking candy apple. Are you kidding me? Listen, we might get 70 home runs. So Judge right now, if we were to project Aaron Judge has 31 home runs in 86 games. So he's on course to definitely hit 60 again. Now, if he has a August where he hits, 18 in the month of August, depending upon what he does in July, then we can have, if Aaron Judge is sitting at 60 home runs in late August, 63 home runs in late August, that's going to be a hell of a story. That's going to be a hell of a story to unfold. I mean, look, he's going to win the MVP in the AL. But point being is he can hit over 70. Who is on your Mount Rushmore for the NBA? Are we talking just all-time greats or certain positions? Yeah, I can't do him, Michael. I can't do Bonds. I can't recognize that. My top 5 in the NBA is very different because I look at eras, and obviously people will put Jordan. I kind of, Wilt, Kareem, people forget how great of a player Bill Russell was. I have to put Magic Johnson there. That's why when everyone, when you get these talking heads or you guys are out with your buddies and you compare Jordan and LeBron, that's not the comparison. Honestly, you really shouldn't compare LeBron to Michael Jordan. If you're going player to player, player comp to player comp, you compare Jordan to no one. You compare LeBron to Magic Johnson because similar player in stature, what they can do with the basketball on the floor, handle, dish, assist, rebound, score. Like Jordan is rarefied air, no pun intended, right? I mean, Jordan is just regarded as the greatest player of all time. Just the greatest player. What Jordan was able to do early on in his career, nobody saw. Nobody saw. Like Bird, Magic, Isaiah, Worthy, Dantley, Aguirre, McAdoo, Dr. J. They can score 25, 30. Jordan's hitting near pumping 35, 40, 45, 50, going into a playoff game, dropping double nickels in 63 and 86 against the Boston Celtics. That was just one of the all-time great teams. What Jordan did above the rim, you have to harken back to what Dr. J was doing, right? People forget David Thompson. David Thompson was a playground legend. David Thompson, the original Skywalker, not my guy, Kenny Skywalker, but David Thompson was a kid from North Carolina, played in the NBA, made his bones on the blacktop, the streets of Rucker Park, where, guys like him and Dr. J, they were putting a quarter on top of the backboard and they were grabbing it. Like, those were your high flyers. Like, they paved the way for a guy like Jordan. I mean, the whole vertical game, the game of basketball, the vertical element of the game, playing above the rim, that's David Thompson, North Carolina State. And then obviously you had from the University of Mass, Dr. J. And then where do we go from there? You got the Michael Jordans, and then it opens up to who? Then we start to go into the Kobe's, the McGrady's, the Vince Carter's, the LeBron James, and the list goes on and on. So going back to your question, it depends on position for me. But I think, Jerry West is right there. Larry Bird was unbelievable. Larry Bird, we say in baseball, we talk about that 5-tool player, right? Mike Trout, Millville, Angels, here you go, 5-tool. What can he do? He can run, he can hit for power, he can catch, he can throw, he can steal bases. He's got the 5 tools. He can do everything. Larry Bird was the equivalent of that. Like, I don't think the younger NBA or basketball fan really appreciates just how great Larry Bird was. I mean, I watched Larry Bird pretty much his entire career because he was killing my Knicks. And Boston was the team in the 80s. The Boston Celtics and the Los Angeles Lakers were the two teams that played in every single NBA finals in the decade of the 80s. Like, think about that. You had wall-to-wall Hall of Famers. That's why you guys get on me and say, stop being the old man on the porch talking about yesteryear in the NBA. That's when the NBA was great. That is when and I'm smiling because I get so excited watching those old games. I'll still watch them on YouTube, or I'll go back and I'll watch, the NBA Fantastic, the NBA Presents, all the old NBA games. Larry Bird is one of the greatest basketball players that have ever lived. It's just what he can do with a ball, the court vision, the acumen. Larry Bird was not thinking a play ahead, a dribble ahead. He was, as we like to say, right, playing chess, and the defenders were playing checkers. I mean, the way he was dogging defenders out there with the ball fake and the no-look passes. Yeah, Magic did his thing. Magic would put it on the floor, the no-look pass, the bounce pass between the legs, behind the back, the hook shot, getting his teammates involved. He was unbelievable. But that was Showtime. That was the style, the flair, the theatrics, playing with wall-to-wall Hall of Famers. And then you got Bird with the Boston Celtics, right? In the big three, McHale, Parrish, Bird, and then the bench and Walton and Ainge and all those guys. Bird was unbelievable. I would go Jordan, Magic, Bird, Wilt, dominant, Bill Russell, Kareem, yes. Jerry West was an unbelievable player. Jerry West, Mr. Clutch, he was a fantastic player. And I think there's players, when we say Mount Rushmore, they're deserving to be on that Mount Rushmore. The NFL, we only look at one position. For some reason, we fixate on the quarterback. That's always the debate. You don't hear people really saying, who's greatest wide receiver? Because you already know, Jerry Rice, right? I mean, again, it's open to debate and discussion, but Jerry Rice. I mean, Jerry Rice, just his work ethic, the time he put in to perfect his craft, and the numbers, the stats, the longevity speak for themselves. And Jerry Rice, his first couple seasons in the NFL, he had a case of the dropsies. That playoff game in '85 against the Giants, early on in that game, he broke free. I mean, that was your picture perfect West Coast offense, hit Jerry Rice in the slant right between the DBs. He's running free to the end zone, Giant Stadium, I remember, and he just lost the football. Changed the whole complexion of that game. From that moment on, that offseason, Jerry Rice will tell you that was one of the most low points of his career because it changed the whole complexion of that game, that season. And obviously the Giants now use that for momentum going forward. 85, they lose to the Bears. 86, they beat Denver, for the Giants to have their little mini run of dominance in the NFC along with San Francisco. Jerry Rice said every day he got up and he went to the jugs machine. He was running. He was having guys smack the ball out of his hand. He was sleeping with the football. He was obsessed like Jordan was. He was running bleachers like Bird was, taking shots. He was obsessed like Kobe was. So to Michael's question, the great ones are obsessed. They are in, they're early, they are the last one to leave. And it's so rare. So I just can't throw guys up on the Mount Rushmores. I take it very serious because now we're talking about a certain level of greatness of the player. Gretzky, stick him up there because there's only one great one. There's only one great Wayne Gretzky. Now, you go back and guys, again, depending upon what era you grew up in, but there are guys that will not debate, not dispute. They won't say anything about Gretzky because they know for a fact Wayne Gretzky is greatest. But then you might get someone to say, well, wait a second. Lemieux's not second. It's Gordie Howe. Or Gordie Howe's not second. It's Bobby Orr. Or Bobby Orr's not second. It's Lemieux. Or it's Yager. Or it's Ovechkin. Or it's Crosby. I mean, it's so, I feel it's subjective. When you've got that one great one, In hockey, it's Gretzky. In the NBA, it's Jordan. And then you go boop, boop, boop. In baseball, what do we look at? We look at the home run hitter first and foremost. Or you look at Cobb. You look at Ruth. That's where we look at baseball. Or some people will say generational talent. Willie Mays, Henry Aaron, Bonds, right? Or is it Ichiro? I mean, in 10 years, are we going to say Ichiro because he's a pitcher and a hitter? And in the NFL, I believe we're just so fixated on the quarterback. I believe we're so fixated on the quarterback that when we have any discussions in the NFL and we say, who's an all-time great in the NFL, are we breaking it down in position? So again, as we kind of close out hour number one, in the NHL, where we kind of started off with some of these records, it's pretty easy. We can say it starts and ends with Gretzky, and then it's pretty subjective, 2, 3, 4, 5. In the NBA, we talk in positions. In the NFL, we're going to have the argument with quarterback, right? It's always the quarterback. So reverse of records never being broken, the records being broken, sacks in the NFL in a 20-game season would change forever. I think the sacks in the NFL, I think that record, that stat, there's a couple stats that annoy me. So interceptions, we always talk about, oh man, this guy threw, 25 picks, 30 picks. I heard someone say this years ago, And at first I kind of laughed because I thought he was kind of bailing out his quarterback. But then as I kind of took a step back, I said, this kind of makes sense. Like, why should I tag a quarterback with a pick that was right in his wide receiver's hands, or a pick at the end of a game on a Hail Mary, or a pick at the end of the first half, and you're just throwing it up? Like, the pick stat, I think, is debatable. It also goes to the sack stat, because if you look at the sack and when it was implemented back in the early 80s, you can sit there and say, well, what about a guy like Deacon Jones? Let's go back and look at all his sacks. Now, again, the barometer, right? You've got Smith, you've got Reggie White, and then obviously we've got some other players that are starting to come in. So it's a very interesting conversation. We're going to carry on with it in the 5 o'clock hour. We'll reset the table. Excellent job with the comments. You guys are just crushing it today on a Thursday. 16 to book, 60 to play with Lloyd Vance. On the other side, we'll talk a little football with him, gets his thoughts and opinion on some of these old school records as well. And we are breaking down the AFC North on this Thursday edition of Middays with Q. 5 o'clock straight up on the East Coast. We will take you up to 6 o'clock sharp on a Thursday.
The glass got the drinks pouring. Take a risk like it's a short thing. Going in, yeah, I'm going all in. Get it out, yeah, you can bring a friend. Dive right in, let's go. No more than dip in the cold. Let the rhythm take control. It's going down tonight, yeah. Dive right in, let's go. No more than dip in the cold. Let the rhythm take control. It's going down tonight, yeah. Dive right in.
This is what the Down Beach Seafood Fest is all about. It's about community, it's about friends, it's about culture, right? The food culture in Atlantic County is rich.
Hidden in an abandoned campground in South Jersey lies a mystical encounter with brews and spirits, where bonfires burn, shadows dance, and flavor favors the bold. Ghosts, ghouls, goblins, grown-ups, it's time to reclaim Halloween. This is Witchcraft, October 10th and 11th. For tickets and information, visit witchcraftnj.com.
All right, 5 o'clock straight up. Apparently, some of the listeners have a fear of Halloween, and that commercial kind of disturbs them. Now it's July. We're talking about October. Now, Lloyd, I'll bring you in on this Thursday edition of Middays with Q. Lloyd Vance, host of Lloyd Vance's Insider Football Monday at 8 o'clock on SR 1029 FM The Game, at Lloyd Vance. Any issue with Halloween? I know it's July. We shouldn't even be talking about it. It's a paying sponsor, but anything frightful, fearful of Halloween, you're okay with Halloween and clowns and stuff like that?
I'm not scared, man. The only thing is sometimes it's a little creepy, that clown and everything. My kids wanted me to watch that movie, but overall, I'm good, Q.
You can't. Yeah, that's a horrible movie. That's a movie that scared the hell out of me. Yeah, that I was not a fan of that clown. When I watch Poltergeist, I'm watching Poltergeist as a kid, and I had a clown in my room, and my sister, to be, just decided to stick the clown under my bed, and I haven't recovered. You're talking about, 25 plus 30 years of therapy. It hasn't gotten any better for me. All right. So we got a lot of NFL. I want to, before we get in the AFC North, because we got a lot of people still commenting about this, we were talking about Clayton Kershaw, 3,000 strikeouts, and I started the show, records that unattainable, you can't touch, or maybe ones that won't be surpassed. And we were just kind of going on the premise, say the NFL expands to 18 games, which we believe it will. Let's take it a step further. Say 20 games. Do you believe we'll ever see a 6,000-yard passer?
If they get 2 more games, there is the possibility. But it's a quarterback-driven league. But the crazy thing is, last year, there was only 6 quarterbacks that threw for 4,000 yards plus. So Burrow was at like 4,900 or so.
Right.
Then got to 5,000. So, but the defenses are so lax and everything. Yeah, I could possibly see a 6,000-yard season, but it's going to take like a Warren Moon type run and shoot type offense where they're throwing it all the time.
Yeah, that's exactly. I mean, you do the math, the numbers add up pretty easy, right? How about a 2,500-yard rusher?
Nah, Q, I don't think we're going to see that. Running backs just get so beat up, and there's just so much that comes with that position. We saw that last year with Saquon Barkley. Everybody was wondering, okay, is he going to break down as he hit that 2,000-yard threshold? It's just so difficult. And Eric Dickerson, man, his record's up there, and he took a beating. We talked about that. I think about a month ago, you and I talked about that, how he was not the same player after he put up that magical season.
Because these guys are, they're carrying the ball 340, 50 times. We were talking a little bit about the sack record I mentioned when it was implemented. When the NFL, what was it, 81, 82?
1982, the sacks came into play.
So you talk about a guy like Deacon Jones. I mean, how many, if you actually equated it over the course of a career and you look at if they were actually calculating, keeping tabs on sacks, I mean, you would stick him right there with the Bruce Smiths and the Reggie Whites.
No doubt about it. And I met him right before he passed, and we honored him at the Black College Football Hall of Fame. And he was like, look, I invented that. He said the term sack. He said, I would grab the quarterback and throw it down, and I'd sack him. And he said, I'm the king of this, and all these other guys come behind me. So, yeah, I do believe if they went back to all the old tapes and everything, he would be up there as the all-time sack leader.
He went to Mississippi Valley State, right? But didn't he also go to South Carolina State?
Yes, he bounced around, and he talked about it was an opportunity. He really didn't have a lot of opportunities out there, and he went to these smaller schools and made good, and then he was just dominant with the Rams. Yeah, he had Merlin Olsen and some other Hall of Famers on that line with him, but he was just such a dominant player. So
they tallied it up. Our listeners are ridiculous. They just sent me the Pro Football Reference. Matt tweeted at me. He had his sacks 8 and 61, 12 and 62, 5.5 and 63, 22 and 64, 19 and 65, 18 and 66, 21 and 67, 22 and 68, 15, 12, 4, 6, 5, 3. I mean, you're talking 20, 47, 37, 77, 90. Now you're over 100. Now you got $120, $130, $140, $150. Now, again, it's not, I mean, what did Smith have? 200? So he apparently, okay, here it is. Pro Football reported Deacon Jones had 173 sacks, which would put him third all time.
Right, and they would have had to go and look at the film and all that, and a lot of it's going to factor in there. And then, Q, when you talk about these records, obviously guys that are compilers, like a Frank Gore, I hate to bring his name up, he had a lot of yards, but he was never, all-pro type of guy. And you're like, okay, was he truly a Hall of Famer or not? But there's always going to be instances. And when you talk about defensive ends, I still think Reggie White's the greatest defensive end. Yeah, Bruce Smith may have the record, but I still think Reggie White is the greatest.
I guess we can say, like Lawrence Taylor, we're talking, if we're going all-time great defensive players, like Lawrence Taylor, for his size at his position, a linebacker shouldn't have done what he did. Reggie White, I feel as though you really start to understand how dominant he was, not when he was with the Eagles, but kind of, later in his career with Green Bay. I mean, he was just, drawing double, triple teams. I mean, you're talking about a disruptor of the game. And to me, that automatically sticks you in the, the all-time great. If Joe Gibbs decides we gotta figure out a way to double, triple Taylor. So what am I going to incorporate? I'm going to have a tight end chip him. All right, that's not going to work. Reggie White, you just kind of had to sit back and just pray the offensive line figured out a way, the bookends figured out a way to just keep him in check. And more times than not, they just never were able to do that.
Yes, and dominant player, and let's not forget 21 sacks in a 13-game strike shortened season. So he would own that all-time sack record from that season if they had played. Think about that. He played those extra games, and he just broke the mold when he made him. And you talk about Lawrence Taylor, as an outside linebacker, you're never going to see a player like that. And it's good that they're in the Hall of Fame, and you never like to see guys get their career cut short.
You might have struck a nerve with some of our. I know there's a diehard 49ers fan that is very loyal to the show that happens to be a diehard Frank Gore fan. I mean, Frank Gore had 16,000 yards.
He did, but he had no All-Pro seasons.
Nope.
And
and his last 4 years, he didn't have 1,000 yards.
In the league. Yeah. And he's not the only one. There's other. If you look at the list, like John Kitna has a lot of passing yards, guys like that. You know what I mean? So
I feel as though if Frank Gore ever got in, how do you not put Tiki Barber in? Tiki Barber, his stats were unheard of.
Threshold, and Tiki's over that 10,000 threshold. Him and Eddie George, and people have said, okay, they're not in there yet, but they definitely deserve to look, both of them.
Yeah. Let me see. Did you strike a nerve? Hold on a second. Let me see. Reggie was 100% a game changer in Philly. Buddy Ryan just ignored the offense. Well, yeah, they were dominant, but let's be fair. I mean, so a couple years ago, I did a spot with Seth Joyner, and Seth's our guy. I mean, Seth Joyner, I think, was such an underrated player, and we talked about those Eagles teams. Like that defense, it should have been criminal. It should have been outlawed. I mean, think about the players they had on the defensive side of the football with that team. It's, you had Simmons and Joyner, you had Andre Waters, you had Reggie White, you had Byron Aaron, you had friggin' Mike Pitts. I mean, and to think they never able to make a deep run.
Yeah,
never able to make a deep run.
And Willie T. I mean, I could go on with that group. And on my show and a bunch last year when the Eagles defense was so dominant, everybody was like, well, you grew up watching that Buddy Ryan defense. Were they better? And I think the Eagles defense back then was better.
They average about 16 points a game.
Yeah. And they were number one across the board in all the season that Randall got hurt. You know what I mean? He got hurt on Monday Night Football. Jim McMahon stepped in. And that defense was number one without him across the board.
Now, didn't he tear his knee up early against Green Bay? Was that the 91 season?
Yeah, that was another season, probably 2 years prior. He got hurt the first game of the season.
Green Bay, and they won that game. Yep.
Yeah. So,
and and the defense carried them, and they won 10 games. They gave up 17 the previous season. They gave up 24. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, you have to appreciate history, and they just don't. They just don't. Stop. Seth Joyner was a great player. Stop. There's no stop. Just de facto, you and your comments today.
Some guys I talked to that are voting for the Hall of Fame. He is definitely getting some consideration.
Oh, interesting. Well, we got some players coming out of the AFC North that we believe will be Hall of Famers. We take a look at the AFC North on this Thursday. Very compelling division. We know Baltimore, Cincinnati, they fixed that defense a little bit. Cleveland's going to stink. And then obviously we've got the Steelers. So here we go. The Ravens sit top of the division. Now we're talking win totals, over and unders, 11.5. You and I have talked about this over the last several years with Baltimore. That's great if they win their 10, 11, 12, 13 games, but enough is enough. You've got to make a deep run into the playoffs. And this team's got to get to an AFC championship and a Super Bowl, because I think right now, you are basically wasting the career and prime of Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, Q. This team is dominant on paper. 12-5 last year. The Pittsburgh game in the wild card round, that was a given. Pittsburgh was leaking oil coming into that game, and the Ravens took care of business, but they lose to Buffalo. Some mistakes early when they tried to come back, but Lamar Jackson, 3-5 in the playoffs, and two-time MVP, but it's always a but. And this roster, as I was saying, they've tried to bring some playmakers in. DeAndre Hopkins, we'll see what he has left coming over from Kansas City. They gave Rashad Bateman an extension at receiver. And then they have Zay Flowers, who's kind of become dominant. Ronnie Stanley and that group up front with Linderbaum at center, they're blasting holes. Last year, Derrick Henry, you talk about almost 2,000 yards in his first season with them. Lamar Jackson, he seems like, he can run for 1,000 all the time. And now he's passing efficiently as well. So, everything's in the right places for them. Their defense, they concentrated on that in the draft. And I just think it's now or never for him, as you were kind of leaning towards there.
So you could have made the argument Lamar Jackson MVP last year. His numbers were off the chart, 41-4, 4,100 yards. He added another 1,000, close to 1,000, I should say. He was right around 915, but still 5,000 total yards of offense. Now, he puts up those gaudy numbers again, and they don't get to the Super Bowl. To me, that's a wasted season. I know it sounds harsh to say, but, you can't be putting up these types of numbers and be that dual threat, and you don't get to a Super Bowl. I believe he's under – we talk about coaches and quarterbacks that are under pressure heading into the season. It's got to be Harbaugh and Jackson. You got to have those two right there at the top of the list.
Yes, Eric DeCosta, their general manager, has done a nice job assembling his talent, but Harbaugh's been there since 08, Q. He's been there a long time. Yes, he didn't win a Super Bowl with the Ravens early in his career, but it is now or never. And I know he was a special teams guy coming up, but the defense was always their calling card. And that defense, they allowed 21 points per game last year. The offense was lights out. 30.5 points per game.
Right.
Like first or second in the NFL. They were just dominant in certain games. But late in the season, they're going to have to play well, and in the playoffs. And you wonder, Steve Bisciotti, the owner there, is he going to say enough's enough with Harbaugh since he's been there so long? So great team to watch. And this division, is going to be very competitive.
I put up their schedule. They open up at Buffalo. Get that out of the way. Cleveland, divisional opponent. Detroit at home. At Kansas City. And they get a break. So Detroit at home, Monday night, travel Kansas City. That's a tough little quirk right there. At Houston, at the Rams. So realistically, you're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tough games to open up the season. No disrespect to Cleveland, which we believe is not going to be a very good team. Then you have a bye. If it's a 2 and 3, then we're talking about, okay, what's wrong with Harbaugh? What's wrong with the offense? What's wrong with Lamar Jackson? If they're 4 and 1, that's great. But again, we're talking about them more if they're 2 and 3 than they're 4 and 1, because it's the expectation that you are one of the top teams in the AFC. They close against Cincy, New England, Green Bay, and Pittsburgh. Now, do they have the horses to not only win the AFC North? Do you foresee this team being a viable option when it comes to playoff seedings? Can they be the top team in the AFC, or is that distinction still with Kansas City and Buffalo?
I think they can be in that mix, that top 3, and fighting for that number 1 spot in the bye. And the schedule's tough, though, as you were talking about. They face 9 teams that make the playoffs, and that early season is really going to tell us a lot about them, particularly that Buffalo game week 1, Detroit, and then at Kansas City. Can they go in there, a place where we talked about just the other day, the Chiefs are 8-0 at home. Can they go in there and get after Patrick Mahomes? Now, this secondary is one of the best in the league. They drafted Starks to go with Hamilton, and they had Wiggins the year before that they drafted. So the secondary is very good. They need to get a pass rush from Matabike and the rest of the guys up front. But I do believe that they can get to fight for that number 1 spot. That 11.5 is very achievable for this team. I would take the over.
Fran in Delaware chimes in, Q, I'm a diehard Ravens fan. Any concern with the wear and tear on Henry? Henry rushed 378 times in 2020. He rushed for 349 times in 2022. He had 325 carries last season. So you're talking about a running back that stays in exceptional shape and in health. He's 31. Okay. He doesn't miss games aside from a couple years ago. Knock on wood, relatively healthy. Is it a down year if he gets 1,800, 1,700 yards and he carries the ball 300 something times? Do you still believe he will be look, he's the featured back. We know that. It's foolish of me to say that. I guess the question is, do you believe he's still going to be the focal point of this offense?
I do believe the running game first and foremost will be, the focal point of this team. And Henry, he'll get the early carries, but then they're also going to use Lamar Jackson on a read option. They're one of the best 1-2 punches in the league in terms of rushing the football. As I was talking about earlier, the offensive line, they've been trying to tinkering with that, but this group up front is pretty dominant. They're built to run the ball, and I do believe that Henry should have another solid season. Remember, early in his career, did not have a lot of carries behind DeMarco Murray with the Titans. So I think he's still fresh and he's running hard.
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, his first 2 years, he only had 286 combined carries, 286 more than you and I combined, but that's okay. Middays with Q on a Thursday. Rich Quiñones here. We are not on TriX 57 on a What the Frig Friday edition, but we'll have an abbreviated Middays tomorrow for the 4th. So if you guys are driving around, keep us locked in for the next 20. You'll capture us on demand as soon as we're off the air at 6 o'clock. Lloyd Vance kind of join us at Lloyd Vance, host of Lloyd Vance's Insider Football on Sports Radio 102.9 FM The Game down there in Florida, and he's kind enough to always join us on BYP Back to Play as well as Middays. All right, so that goes to Cincinnati, a team that, the cliche of, hey, we don't want to see them in the playoffs. Now, this is all contingent upon fixing that darn defense. We know the offense is absolutely lights out. Burrow is just an unbelievable quarterback and star. 9.5 for Cincinnati on the caveat that they pay their players and they figure out a way to fix that defense.
Going to be a fun team to watch, Q. We talked about teams that did not make the playoffs last year, and obviously Cincinnati very dangerous down the stretch, finishing 5-0. Nobody did want to see them make the playoffs. They just got pushed out by the Steelers, and they can put up some points. 472 points, which is 27.8 per game. Defense, they got to fix it. They bring over Al Golden from Notre Dame. That group allowed 25.5 per game. They got to figure out what to do there. Obviously, Hendrickson, they got to pay him, figure out what to do. He led the NFL in sacks. But he's seeing Max Crosby get that 3-year, $106.5 million contract, which is 35.5 per year, and he wants that type of deal. Mike Brown, known to be kind of cheap as the owner there with the Bengals, and they got to figure something out with him, as well as Jamar Stewart, their number one draft pick out of Texas A&M. They have that whole thing with contract language. He's not signed. So, they've invested a lot on the offensive side of the ball. Jamar Chase, they just franchised T. Higgins again. And then you talk about Joe Burrow, who's playing just as well as any quarterback in the league. I mean, he put up some ridiculous stats last season. So this can be a very dangerous team. I think that their head coach, Zach Taylor, is another guy who's kind of on the hot seat. They need to get things done. And most importantly, they can't get off to an 0-3 start. They did that last year, and they did that in 2019. Both times they did not make the playoffs.
I feel as though this year they have to figure out a way to get a little more of a balanced attack, right? I mean, are we looking at a Chase Brown, Moss kind of like that 1-2 punch, right? Because they picked, he did a good job once they got rid of Mixon, who I thought was a really good running back. But, you got a kid that's 24, 25, now had an opportunity to blossom just under 1,000 yards. I think they need to run the ball first and foremost to open things up. Look, it's going to be a passing offense. We know that. But eventually, when you start to look at these games in that division in bad weather, you know this as well as I do, you're going to have to learn to run the football a little more. That's something that I don't believe they were able to do a lot of late last year, which put a lot more pressure on Burrow to have those, 330, 340 type of games.
Right. And they lost a lot of close games because that defense kept getting beat over the top. And they need to have more balance because, yes, they are very pass heavy, throwing the ball to Chase, Higgins, Gesicki at the tight end position had a big year last year. But, you have to have a running game. And you talk about late in the season, particularly these divisional games where you're playing the Ravens, and playing the Steelers. I mean, these are tough games. And even the Cleveland Browns have a good defense as well with Myles Garrett and the rest of those guys. So Brown, He looked pretty good. Like, at certain points in the season, I said, why not feature him? Because you know what you're going to get with Zach Moss. Is really
Sure.
not left. Shamaji Piran, he's good at the goal line, can have some catches and things, but Kansas City jettisoned for a reason, and he's now back with the Bengals. So I think they have to find that balance. And then we talk about that defense. Golden's he's got to have the magic plan for this group, because other than Hendrickson, there's just a lot of just retreads and
Right.
guys that like, okay, they're just average type of players on that defense.
They open up first 3 out of 4 on the road at Cleveland, home against Jacksonville, at Minnesota, and then at Denver. Then they have Detroit, Green Bay, Pittsburgh, the Jets, the Bears. Their bye doesn't come till week 10. They close the season against Miami, might be fighting for a playoff. Arizona might be fighting for a playoff spot. Actually, let me take a step back. Their season might be won or lost November, Thanksgiving at Baltimore, next week at Buffalo in December, and then home against Baltimore. That's pretty tough. So to your point, yeah, you have to get off to a very good start. I think it's one of the reasons that the odd makers kind of have this a little more shaded right around, the 9.5. Maybe I'm too overzealous and high on Joe Burrow, thinking he's going to carry them once again. As long as they can run the football, they figure it out with their defense, they're going to be okay. I think they'll be able to sweep Cleveland. They'll be able to sweep the Steelers. Maybe a split against the Ravens. I can see them winning 10 games. So what say you?
Yeah, Q, I think they should get to that 9.5. We talked about last year. They had 9 wins. So I think with Golden coming in, they'll try to fix that defense and they'll get that little extra to achieve the over there. But they do have a tough schedule, face 9 playoff teams. And when I was writing this up, I immediately looked at that 3-game stretch there.
You have to.
That's going to prove who they are now. They kind of have a soft landing after that stretch, at Miami, Arizona, and in Cleveland, which are 2 home games. But definitely they got to compete, especially in the division.
Yeah, and I guess, too, you get the benefit of Thanksgiving. You're getting that weekend off, right? So you have a little more, Friday. But again, also in comparisons, you play that Sunday and then you turn around right back and you play on that Thursday. They have 3 games in 11-day stretch. I hate that, by the way, but they have 3 games off the bye in 11-day stretch. So we believe they can get to that 9-10. Howie, a big Browns fan tuning in right now. The Browns sitting at 5.5. I don't know what direction the franchise is really going to go when it comes to the quarterback. You got a lot of certain reports floating around in Cleveland from the beat writers, who's looking good, who's not looking good, whose job is it to lose, who solidified it. Is it Flacco? Is it Pickett? Is it Gabriel? Is it Sanders? Your guess is as good as mine. I just don't see them being a very competitive team. Even if they go to Sanders, there's going to be, or any of those quarterbacks, aside from Flacco, a veteran who can't really move around a lot, takes a lot of sacks. He's been around the block. We know that, but I believe they're going to struggle out of the gate. And their schedule, which I'll get to in a moment, is brutal. So initial thoughts, Cleveland sitting at that number 5.5.
Yeah, Q, I don't know if they're going to get to that 3-win team last year. And I just don't know if they made enough changes. And in terms of the playmakers, they have Jerry Jeudy and not much else there. You know what I mean? They bring it over Deontay Johnson, who kind of bounced around last year. They're hoping to catch lightning in a bottle with him. I just don't know. And then the offensive line's been kind of patchwork recently. DeJuan Jones at the left tackle. We'll see what he brings to the table. The big thing, obviously, Njoku is a good player, but who's going to be throwing him the football? I I think it's going to be Joe Flacco initially. They have so many quarterbacks, but they have no one that's the guy. You know what I mean? Maybe to be Shedeur Sanders, but even starting a rookie in this division is going to be tough for them. Last year, 2-4 in division, limped home 0-5 their last 5 games with a 6-game losing streak. So you talk about coaches on a hot seat. Kevin Stefanski firmly is. And then even at running back, they're bringing in Junkins coming from Ohio State in the 2nd round. We'll see if he's able to kind of fix, what was left after Chubb left. But, this team's in total disarray. And other than Myles Garrett, you got to say, okay, who's the marquee guy? Who are fans coming to see play? So, yeah, I don't think they get to that 5.5.
All right, I told you, I was going to be shocked if Sanders even made the roster. Even if you're looking at a fourth or fifth round pick, risk to reward. And I also told you I don't believe he's going to be a very good quarterback in the NFL. I almost went as far as to say bust. And I know you said relax, calm down. He'll be a week one starter. Now, it's well documented they have a logjam at that quarterback position. So you got a fifth rounder, a rookie in Sanders. You got another rookie draftee in Gabriel. There's a sentiment that right now it's Pickett or Gabriel starting over Sanders, and maybe Flacco, they cut him, or maybe they just keep him around as that veteran presence to mentor, because you're not going to do anything with Deshaun Watson. Now, it's July 2025. There's already these mock drafts saying Cleveland is going to be so bad in such a top 5 position that they might turn around next season and draft the kid out of Clemson. And he's on the cusp of having a breakout season, the kid Klubnik, right? Kate Klubnik, if they're top 5. So that tells me, are you going into the season trying to figure out what you have with these quarterbacks? And if you can get something out of Sanders, maybe you believe he's the answer. We talk about these teams with zero rhythm or rhyme or path to victory, or, just, I don't even know, direction, if you will. And that's where I think they're at. And by the way, I haven't even gone on their schedule. So kind of comment, if you will, on what I just said about even next year and the logjam right now. Do you believe Sanders, your opinion is Sanders will be the week one starter?
Ooh, I may have to back off that cue, but we'll see. We'll see. Andrew
I
Barry.
Twist you a little bit.
Andrew Barry, I always thought was a very good GM. He came out of the Eagles system and kind of went there, and you saw him make the playoffs in 2023 with Flacco, and they seem to be ascending. But now they just have no plan, rhyme or reason, like you were just talking about there. And why take Gabriel in the 3rd round, and then you turn around and take Sanders in the 5th round? So you have 2 quarterbacks coming in there. We talked about this was a light quarterback class to begin with.
Yeah.
And, I just thought Gabriel was kind of a reach where they took him. And then Kenny Pickett, they trade for him with the Eagles. They send DTR away, who they weren't going to use. And what's Pickett bringing to the table? He played it not well for the Steelers when they drafted him. And then,
meaningful games and snaps with the Eagles, people say, oh, that guy can play a little bit. It's like, stop.
Right. And then the biggest one, the elephant in the room, is Deshaun Watson. What are they going to do with him? He has another Achilles injury, due $46 million guaranteed this season and next. So do they cut him? What are they going to do? But, Jim Haslam, the owner there, he's got to figure out with his leadership what they're doing, because I think Stefanski and Barry are on the hot seat. And then you talk about just a lack of depth and playmakers on this roster. They are bad. They are going to be an Arch Manning sweepstakes. So
yeah, they're not going to be favored in many games. They're not going to be favored in many games. I can tell you that. I'm going to pull up their schedule right now. Scott chimes in real quick, though. Browns aren't ready to win. Run game gets gone. We can be a little bit better here. So let me just break this down. Typically the first 6 or 7, right? They open against Cincinnati. That's a loss. They go on the road against Baltimore. That's a loss. Green Bay at home. That's a loss. At Detroit. That's a loss. Home against Minnesota. I believe that's a London game because it's 9:30. Yes. Who knows?
Yes, London game.
At the road, on the road at Pittsburgh, that's a loss. Home against Miami, that's a loss. On the road against New England, I think that's a loss. Now, if we go by your premise or your thought that maybe Sanders gets the nod, here's the other thing. Is this going to be a Bryce Young situation? Now, it's apples and oranges, but follow me for a second. You start the kid, you throw him to the Wolves, he's sacked all over the place, the game's too fast, he's throwing picks left and right, and then you bench him. That, like, right now, I feel like Cleveland is a rudderless ship.
Yeah, they face 8 teams that make the playoffs, and they won't be favored in any of these games. And whether it's Sanders, whether it's Gabriel, Flacco, I just don't see it making a difference. I really don't. So, Sanders, I'm hearing they want him as a developmental guy, and they'll have him on a roster. Maybe they won't play him. Maybe they'll just keep him around. But, I think the pressure will be on them to saying, well, you took him, put him out there on the field, see what he can do. But it's just, they got so many quarterbacks in that room, and none of them who's the guy? You just.
But then the argument is, right, to your point, but then the argument is, well, we took him in the 4th or 5th round, so quote, he is a developmental quarterback. But he isn't in this way. People, pundits that get paid to talk NFL and scout college, a month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months prior to the draft, they had him coming out as the top rated quarterback ahead of Cam Ward. And now all of a sudden the stock falls, he drops. Now we're talking about potentially practice squad developmental quarterback. To me, that's just an organizational failure. That's what Cleveland did back in the day when they would just, we got to draft the quarterback, got to draft the quarterback, got to draft the quarterback. We have to see what sticks, right? Vince says that the Browns are smart, trade those picks next year for a top wide receiver. You still need a quarterback. You need someone throwing them the friggin' football.
Yeah, they have not had a quarterback forever. We always know, we've always seen that, list with Brady, Quinn, Spurgeon, Wynn, and all, all the direct
Garcias of the world
over the years. And it's just like, figure out a plan. And it may take Stefanski being fired and tearing this whole thing down and going from there. And Garrett's a good trade chip. Maybe send him somewhere for about a boatload of picks or something like that. But something's got to be done, and I think it's just going to be an ugly season for them. We went over the schedule here. In the division, I just don't see them winning a lot of games in the division, and you just talk about the mess that they've created in terms of Gabriel. What are they going to do with him? They drafted him in the 3rd round. They could have used that pick on something else, somebody to help this defense out. The defense allowed over 400 points last year, 25.6 per game. And then the offense, you talk about need a receiver. Yeah, they only scored 15.2 points per game. So, they're not even putting up points. So I think it's going to get worse before it gets better.
Mike in Ohio, listening on TriX57.com, and we appreciate that. Q, the sports talk up here saying that Kevin Stefanski never wanted Sanders, and he's absolutely enamored with Slim Pickett. Wow. I mean, this guy's setting himself up where, if it does not work out, man, he's definitely. I think if they're 1-6, 1-7, I can see a head coaching change. I can. I really can.
I can, because they finished last year on a 6-game losing streak, and there was question marks at the end of last season to even bring them back, and then they did it again. So maybe tear it down, finally get rid of Deshaun Watson's contract that's been an albatross on this team, and just start anew. But it's when you look at the roster player for player, there's just not a lot there.
Yeah, I mean, we both agree. They're hammer that under. I mean, 2, 3, maybe they luck into 4 wins, but they're not winning 6 games.
I totally agree with you there too.
All right, let's finish off with Vince's Steelers and Aaron Rodgers at 8.5. Vince is obviously the big-time Steelers fan that claims he, defected to Duval in Jacksonville and that goofy owner and the GM. You got a bridge quarterback who's half in. And you know what I say on the air for 20 years. You can't be a little pregnant. Like, this guy is not all in. Aaron Rodgers isn't all in. And I don't care about some of the weapons that they have. I don't care about some of the weapons they lost. I don't trust Rodgers at this stage of his career. I don't trust Tomlin. That is a very tough AFC North division, as we documented, aside from Cleveland. I feel this is the season that everything comes to a head for Pittsburgh. And then we start to have the conversation, is it time for a head coaching change with Mike Tomlin? Now, I'll go through the schedule in a second, but they're pinning all their hopes on Aaron Rodgers. It's exactly what the Jets did, and we know what happens. I mean, it's just, look, you also lost Najee Harris too. So you're talking about a pretty solid running back, right? You lose him to the Chargers. I think they still have the kid Warren. And then we talked a little bit about the wide receivers. Okay, you get him a big target, but the other thing is, what happens when said big target is not getting his catches and he's not getting his touches in DK Metcalf, right? And I don't trust Austin. I don't trust Woods. I just don't like the makeup of this team right now. And I think this can get really ugly very fast for Pittsburgh.
Okay, Mike Tomlin. I don't I don't think he's on a hot seat because of the Steelers' way, but when you look at his resume recently, they have not had a playoff win since the 2016 season. So way back in January of 2017, they won in divisional round over KC. Long time since he's had a playoff win. A lot of heat on Tomlin in terms of that. We know never had a losing season, but when you look at the over/under number, it's 8.5. So you know even Vegas is thinking, okay, maybe this is the year that they
They took a
finally
step back.
don't
Yeah.
don't win it. And you're bringing in Rodgers in there. He'll be 42 before the end of the season. He has that Achilles injury, was not moving well. We know the Steelers' offensive line with Broderick Jones at left tackle. Zach Frazier is good at center, but Jones has struggled, and a lot of the other guys on that line have. Metcalf is going to he was kind of a headache with Seattle at the end of his career there. And then Robert Woods, what does he really have left? They're counting on Roman Wilson, who they drafted in the third round last year. But, kind of a smallest receiver. We'll see what he brings to the table. Now they have Jonnu Smith with Freiermuth at the tight end position. Maybe they utilize some of that 12 personnel. Warren, they like him a lot. And they also brought in Caleb Johnson coming from Iowa. Big, strong running back. So maybe they'll try to run the football and then lean on that defense. Their defense has always been their calling card, allowing only about 20 points per game last year. But they got to fix this whole TJ Watt thing. We talked about Crosby getting that big contract, and he's looking at it saying, I'm better than him. I need to get paid as well. And then Cam Hayward's getting a little older there. They just traded Minka Fitzpatrick. You got a hole there in the back. I do like the cornerback situation, though, bringing over Jalen Ramsey. They have Slay, Joey Porter Jr., but a lot of question marks with the Steelers team.
Glenn and AC chimes in. Q, I'm a Pittsburgh fan. Don't even talk about the first couple of weeks of the season. Look at the back end. That's where I think they're going to have some issues with Rodgers. So they open against the Jets on the road, Seattle on home, New England on the road, Minnesota at home. They get a very early bye week, week 5. And I think to Glenn's point, what he's referring to is the games against Buffalo, Baltimore, Miami, Detroit. They close the season against Baltimore. That might be Aaron Rodgers and Mike Tomlin's last games respectively. I just don't see offensively how they're going to muster enough points to compete with some of these teams. I just don't, especially within the division. Baltimore is going to put up points. Cincinnati's going to put up points. And they've got pass rushers as well. Detroit has a good defense aside from the loss against Washington, but they can put up a lot of points. Seattle can put up a lot of points. I think New England's going to be able to beat them. Green Bay can put up points. I don't know about Indianapolis. Chargers can put up points. Chicago's got a better defense. I honestly, and it's not a hot take, I don't believe Aaron Rodgers. I think they would have been better off just sticking with Fields. They wanted to re-sign Fields. He tested the waters. Russell Wilson and Fields were one-year contracts. So they kept waiting and waiting and waiting. So what happens? Wilson goes to the Giants. Cool, by the way, there's already talk that they prefer Jameis Winston to start over Russell Wilson, by the way, which we'll get into in a moment. And then Fields signs a multi-year deal with the Jets. So they should have either drafted a quarterback and you draft a quarterback and you still have Justin Fields, low risk, high reward, get something on return on investment. The fact that they put all their eggs in a basket and Aaron Rodgers kind of fiddling his thumbs and fiddling around and they waited and they waited and waited tells me right now mentally this guy is not all in. And you can't have that, especially a franchise like the Steelers that for 40-something years has been the definition of what? Stability, consistency, winning, competitiveness. I'm looking at this team right now. Let me pull up the graphic. 8.5. I think this is a 5-6 win team. That's how bad I think it's going to be for Pittsburgh.
Well, it depends which Aaron Rodgers is going to show up. And we saw him at the end in Green Bay before he even went to the Jets. He was leaking oil there, tears the Achilles last season. He's not moving that well.
Yeah.
And you're talking about the struggles of that offensive line of the Steelers and protection and schemes. Maybe it would have been better to keep a more mobile quarterback. You saw Justin Fields able to get away from some pressure and use his legs and do some things there. The schedule is very tough. Face 7 playoff teams, Q, and they have a big trip week 4. They play in Dublin, Ireland against the Vikings. So that's why they have that early bye. So you've got to factor that in. Week 13, Buffalo, week 14 at Baltimore. These are games you're going to highlight, and then week 16 at Detroit, and then you talk about that huge game,
Oh,
the big rivalry in the NFL, one of them where they're facing Baltimore in week 18, and that could be, the nail in the coffin of their season. So it's
you going under?
task.
You go. I'm going to hammer the under as well.
I've always said, I believe in Tomlin. Never had a losing season. I think this is his first losing season, Q. I just think, when you look at the roster, they just don't have enough playmakers.
No.
And in today's NFL, it's nice to have two good tight ends, but you need more than that. So I think this is his first losing season. I'll go with the under.
Howie Browns fan, when we were talking a little AFC North, Q, we don't have a quarterback. We just don't honestly believe the backup quarterback for the Eagles, McKee, would be a better quarterback than the ones we have on the roster right now. Kid showed a little bit with the Eagles. Now, I mentioned Russ Wilson. They preferred Jameis Winston. Now, again, this is going to be from left field. You got two veterans on that squad, right? Two proven vets. And you got a Hall of Fame quarterback in Russell Wilson. And you got a journeyman quarterback in Jameis Winston. But, players respond to him, they respect him. And at least with Winston, you're going to throw the football. It might be a little fun. Is it possible that come week one of those two are not on the Giants roster?
Yeah, I think, with Jackson Dart being there, Q, they think they have their quarterback of the future. So why not put him into number 2 spot and get him ready during the week and give him his reps? Why have a veteran like a Jameis Winston sitting there and why probably go with a guy like Tommy DeVito? He's not going to threaten Jackson Dart or anything like that. And just see who's going to be the starter. So both Winston and Wilson signed value contracts, and it wouldn't be hard to get out of their deal. So we'll see if one or both of them are gone. So
I don't believe you can go into the season with just Dart and DeVito. I think it's a lesser of two evils, right? I mean, I want to dance with the devil I know as opposed to the devil I don't know. If you back me up against a corner, I think they're going to keep Russ, which kind of goes into this. Why can't you then try to get something for Winston and maybe call up a Cleveland, call up a New Orleans? I mean, they need a quarterback. They do. And I just don't see the Giants going in with 4 quarterbacks this season. And I certainly don't see them. My gut tells me, as much as some within the organization might prefer Winston, I think Mara is kind of in love with the idea of Russell Wilson, the Super Bowl winning future Hall of Fame quarterback in the New York market. Let's see if we can squeeze a little bit out of him this season. Now, I give it a short leash, but point is, you got another veteran quarterback. Why not try to get something for him? Because to go in there with Wilson, Winston, and then Dart as the third, you're right. You're taking meaningful snaps and reps away from this kid during the week.
Yeah, and I think New Orleans definitely is a team you got to keep your eye on in terms of that extra quarterback for the Giants. If somebody gets cut, they need a quarterback. Desmond Ritter, Spencer Rattler's not doing well down there. And then you have, Tyler Shuck coming in the draft, and he's kind of an underachiever as well. So it would make sense to send Jameis Winston down there. And I do agree with you in terms of Russell Wilson. He has the name and the panache. His resume is Hall of Fame worthy. And I think that Mara's going to make sure that he gets his opportunity first to be the starter. Brian Dable on that hot seat, Joe Shane, GM on hot seat. They need one of these quarterbacks to win now.
Nick and Wallingford chimes in, Q. Remember, I used to listen to you guys on 1290 The Ticket. I'm a big-time Steelers fan. Do you think now there's more security with Tomlin that Khan just signed that new 3-year deal? Now, he's talking about the general manager, and Rooney II was waxing poetic. It's a really good point. So, again, if you're just tuning in, Steelers signed their GM, Omar Khan, to a new 3-year deal. So that'll keep him under contract through 2028. Now, again, you think about the relationship he's got with Tomlin. The Steelers are 29 and 22 in his 3 seasons as GM. They made the postseason in each of the past 2 years. They lost in the wild card round both times. So now you lock him up. Do you believe that helps or hurts Mike Tomlin's cause if we're talking about him being potentially on the hot seat if they have a down season?
Yeah, it definitely helps his cause that the Steelers are all about consistency. You see that they brought everybody back. Terry Austin, that's a coordinator. They bring back Arthur Smith. Tomlin's been a coach there since 2007. So the Rooneys, it's a Steeler way. They've always said they're a family, and that once you're their guy, you're their guy, and they seem to like Tomlin. But it's definitely going to be interesting if this blows up because of Aaron Rodgers and the mess that he brings. And do they have enough talent on his team? The TJ Watt situation, he's definitely on a hot seat in terms of any other coach. If he wasn't there so long, he said, yeah, he's going to be out of there. But they need to win. But this is a tough division, and they're very inconsistent. Only 3-3 in the division last year. And let's not forget, they were 1-4 at the end of last season. And then they didn't really even show up in that playoff game against the Ravens.
Who do you have winning the North?
I was back and forth on this one between the Bengals and the Ravens. I'm going to go with the Ravens, though, because they are really compiling the defense to complement Lamar Jackson. So I think they're going to be a very dangerous team, but that schedule's going to be tough for them.
All right. And then lastly, I posed a question of the day. Apparently, it's causing some controversy. I'll throw it up and you tell me what you think. We're talking 4th of July, mustard and ketchup together on a hot dog. Is that sane or crazy? I mean, what are we doing here? You going with the ketchup? You going with the mustard? My belief is this. If you can stick it on a hamburger, let's not discriminate. If you mix the two together, we can all get along. Why can't you do that with a dog?
My son likes both of them. And I said, no, you put mustard only on a hot dog. That's what they give you at the stadium. You put mustard on a hot dog. You put mustard on a soft pretzel. They're
But hold on a second. But then why can you go ketchup and mustard on a hamburger?
I don't know. I guess people like the way it tastes, but typically it's ketchup only for a
burger.
Yeah.
That's a good pull, by the way, on the soft pretzel.
Yeah.
I feel as though it is and you know me, I'm very picky when it comes. I eat bland food, same crap every day. Oatmeal, egg whites, broccoli, chicken. Oatmeal, egg whites, broccoli, chicken. Whey protein, right? So we mix it up. Steak, no doubt. Man, I'll tell you, sometimes the body just needs that big fat burger, throw in that fried egg and bacon, lettuce, tomato, some extra large fries on the side. Even looking at that, I probably put on 15 pounds. Did you see the video of my guy, Brandon Jacobs?
Yeah, that was interesting. His son is so much bigger than him. He's going to Clemson, big offensive lineman prospect, like a 5-star kid. And
huge.
Because, and Jacobs, he was one of those big running backs. It was like him and Eddie George.
I think you actually sent me the video because I text Brandon and I said, you're looking kind of small. And he just, I'm not going to tell you what he responded with. I can't say it on the air, but
I can only imagine, man. Nobody likes to say, your kid looks like you could beat your butt.
That's pretty much what I said. I was like, what the hell are you feeding that kid down there? And then I mocked him a little bit. Lastly, before I let you get out of here, Scott says, if the Browns do fire Stefanski at the end of the season, how hard would it be for the Browns to get a better coach to come to Cleveland? I guess, we're talking about a franchise that is just not a winning franchise. I mean, is that an appealing spot? I think everything's contingent if you have a quarterback. And if you have a quarterback, then I think your head coach has an opportunity to survive, if that makes sense.
Yeah, there's only 32 jobs, and someone's going to value that position, even though Haslam's tough to deal with and on. Could you imagine if they got one of their former coaches to come out of retirement and come? Well, Belichick's at North Carolina, and they always say he won't be there for long, or maybe even Saban out of retirement. Can you imagine if they put those guys there? Because that's the kind of splash it would take, or it just seems they can't get the right coach. They're another, Freddie Kitchens and all these other guys. They just can't get the right quarterback or the coach there.
Hey, Belichick had a moderate, he won 11 games when he was with Cleveland. Of course, that was, when he was kind of coming up. I believe at this point he runs through at least one season in North Carolina. Like I said, man, it looks like it's going to be a train wreck. I think there's too much going on where he wants to get back to the NFL, period, because he wants to be Shula's mark. So, you got any plans for 4th of July? We'll get you back. I know you'll be back on 1029 when Angel Lloyd Vance Insider Football Monday at 8.
Yeah, we're just gonna have some family time and just keep doing my studying for the season. So it's exciting time. We're getting close, Q. We're September 4th will be here before we know it. The Eagles and Dallas, and it's going to be a fun season.
Oh. Yeah, that'll be a 35-6 type of game, and we'll lay a heavy number on the Philadelphia Eagles and put a little coin in the pocket. BYP coming up very, very soon. So, all right, brother, I appreciate you. Have a good 4th, and listen, don't discriminate right away. If there's a little mustard, a little ketchup, throw them on the dog, give it a little whirl, text me, let me know how you make out, bro.
All right, Q. Thanks for having me on. Talk to you.
All right, you got it. My guy, Lloyd Vance. He's the best. He's the best. Don't forget, every Monday, 8 o'clock to 9, Lloyd Vance's Insider Football 1029 FM, The Game. I got a couple minutes to get out of here. We won't hit the break. Let me clean up with some comments from you guys. Oh, I did see that. Some of you guys are asking me if I saw Michael Madsen passed away. Yes. Yeah. Yep. Everyone looks. I liked him. I thought he was a really good actor. He was, wasn't he, Mr. Blonde in Reservoir Dogs, which was a great movie. But I also made a point with my guy, Shine the Prop, who's a great handicapper on X at Professor Shine. Remember, he was Bump Bailey in the movie The Natural with Robert Redford. Remember when he tried to make that catch against the wall, and it was a great catch that never was, and he ran right through the wall, and they sprinkled his ashes on the field. So I got a couple more on the, Chavez Jr. I just really don't know where to go with this, to be honest with you guys. I mean, I'm sure more is going to come out regarding this story. As I mentioned, I think it's a little bizarre that you're claiming him a affiliate of the cartel, and then you're going to allow him to, put on the event and fight and get the bag and then do whatever he wants to media-wise. So very bizarre. Q-Fecta, nothing on the WNBA. We'll give you some baseball plays as we wrap it up. We've been a little better with our baseball plays. The last couple of days, not bad. 5-3. We'll take it. We're not going to run with it. We'll take it, but we're not going to run with it. Let me give the Q-Fecta from our good friends over at Tri-X 57. The pack of picks. Yankees pretty much got to pick up a win, do they not? You're not going to lose 4 straight to the Blue Jays. Mets 160 over the Brew Crew. The Braves minus 155. Money line on the Angels. And a couple comments before we get out of here. Q, your pick Spain to win the women's UEFA tournament. 150 today over Portugal. How do I not go, Michael? How do I not go against España? Come on. You already know that. You already know that. We are going that route. By the way, Larry Henry from The Athletic is going to start joining me on pretty much either weekly or bi-weekly spots. This is a tough one, by the way, too, because Italy beat Belgium 1-0, and then Spain beat Portugal 5-0. So it's like, all right, little torn here. You got Denmark and Sweden. That's going to be a very good game. And then match, and you got Germany and Poland as well. But no, we're rolling with the Spaniards. Come on now. We're rolling with the Spaniards. All right. Excellent jobs. As always with the comments, you guys are fantastic. The eyeballs are sensational. I greatly appreciate you guys hanging out 2 hours a day, Monday to Friday. We will not be on Tri-X 57 tomorrow. Abbreviated edition of Middays with Q on the YouTube channel as well as X. But follow along, trix57.com. Subscribe to your YouTube channel. Go to their Facebook, and all you got to do is click Watch Live. You go to the website, same thing. On demand. If you missed today's show, if you're chiming in late, that's okay. We flipped the script. On demand, right there, a 2-hour block. You just put in Middays with Q. I reshare it as well on Facebook, also on X and my YouTube channel. Everyone have a really, safe, first and foremost, 4th of July. If you guys are driving around, don't drink and drive. Don't text and drive. Be careful on the short points with the kids and, the dogs and the animals and everything. Have a little fun at the beach and just enjoy it. We're supposed to get really good weather up and down the East Coast. Have fun. Be safe.